Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I've been reading up on some content and I thought it worthwhile to share it with you all. But before I go into the content, I would like to put forth a disclaimer. I'm going to be mentioning a few names and a few theories. And it's not like I'm endorsing all of the opinions put forth by these individuals, but these few opinions, I'm mentioning them to prove a few points. So, getting into the content. In the 1960s, there was a famous neuroscientist by the name Dr. Paul MacLean. Now, he came up with a theory that the human brain is not just one brain, but rather three parts to it. And he went on to say that the human brain consists of three main parts, and they are primarily the brain stem, otherwise known as the reptilian brain. And then you have the limbic system, otherwise known as the mammalian brain, and then you have the neocortex. Now, I know all these terms sound really technical, and I'm not familiar with these terms, but I'm mentioning them to prove a point. So we have the reptilian brain, and according to him and other scientists who've been studying the brain, the human brain, they say that this part of the brain is the part that's involved in aggression, territory, survival instincts, the fight or flight responses, etc. So this is basically the part of the brain that really acts like an animal, and all its concern is survival. So basically, it's the part of the brain that is focused on sexual reproduction, on territory, on all these things. So that's the brain stem. And then we have the limbic system. Now, this part of the brain is the part of the brain that's focused on feelings and emotions. Now, this is the part of the brain that sends pleasure signals as well as pain signals. Like say when you're eating food, this part of the brain is the part that sends feeling good signals to motivate you to keep eating so that you don't starve out of hunger. Likewise, when you're involved in sexual reproduction, this is the part of the brain that sends pleasure signals so that you keep reproducing and so that mankind keeps reproducing. And this is also the part of the brain that sends pain signals when something dangerous is about to happen, or when you do something that, or when you're about to do something that might harm you or hurt you, and things like that. Thirdly, we have the neocortex. Now, this part of the brain is the part of the brain that's involved in logic, reasoning, creativity, thinking, and all of that stuff. So this part of the brain is the part of the brain that is always on this quest for a deeper meaning to life. And this is the part of the brain that always looks for purpose and meaning in life. And this is why, as human beings, you and I, we're always, in that pursuit. We're always looking for meaning to our lives. We're always looking for this deeper purpose as to why we are here. What are we doing here? The minute you identify your purpose in life, the minute you identify meaning to your life, life becomes so much more meaningful. And on the other hand, if you fail to identify your purpose in life, and if you're not living a life of purpose, then what happens is you start floundering aimlessly, and life loses its meaning. In the 1940s, there was another individual by the name Viktor Frankl. He's an Austrian psychologist, and he was the one who came up with a school of thought known as logotherapy. He was put through a certain ordeal in his life. He was taken as a prisoner and put into one of the Nazi concentration camps. Now, we all know that all hell breaks loose in those camps. I mean, if you were to put yourselves in his shoes, we can't even try to fathom or try to perceive the terror and the persecution he must have gone through. But then, I mean, we have read about it. We know that, loved ones were killed mercilessly, and they put the prisoners through a lot of torments, a lot of punishments and whatnot, so much to the extent that they destroyed them psychologically and destroyed them physically as well. But this individual, he escapes from one of these camps. He comes out, he writes books. So it was asked as to, what drove him, and he said that he identified that purpose in his life, and he had meaning to his life, and that was the dominant driving force that drove him to have hope, to escape from those camps, and to also continue with life. He didn't just give up. And even he says in his books or in his writings that suffering, even suffering, ceases to be suffering the minute meaning is attached to it. And this is the understanding of sacrifice. You know, you're ready to sacrifice your time, you're ready to sacrifice your wealth, you're ready to dedicate your life towards a project the minute meaning is attached to that particular sacrifice. And then that's when it's known as sacrifice. So it's all about, you know, identifying your purpose in life, identifying the why. You see, most of the time we're focused on the what in life, you know, what's happening around me and things like that. We don't really focus on the why. You see, when you go through the stories of the prophets of the past, and this is one of the purposes, this is the wisdom, one of the wisdoms behind why God has mentioned so many stories of the prophets of the past, so that we can deduce lessons and implement those lessons in our lives, so that we can derive inspiration from those stories, so that we can motivate ourselves forward. We observe a recurring theme across all the prophets' lives, and that recurring theme is that they were put through a lot of trials and challenges by God, despite the fact that they were the most beloved of creation unto God. You take any prophet, he was put through so many trials and challenges, you know, whilst he was on his mission. But in no way did they waver. They didn't lose hope. They didn't lose faith. And this is what we need to learn from them. Take the prophet Joseph, for example, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. We know his story that from day one, he was put through a roller coaster ride, seriously. At a very young age, his own siblings go dump him into the bottom of a deep and dark well. Just imagine, as he was falling down the well, one can only imagine the turmoil that must have gone through his little heart. He must have thought, okay, it happened by accident and maybe they're going to save me, they're going to rescue me. But all he hears are receding footsteps and snickering laughter. And then days pass by, a caravan comes about, and perhaps he's thinking that this caravan is a rescue team, that they're going to rescue him and take him back to his father. But then no, they do rescue him from the well, but then they shackle him, throw him to the back of a caravan, and they take him to a foreign land and they sell him off as a slave. One day you're a free man and the next day you're a slave. One of the ministers of Egypt purchases him, takes him home, and now the story is fast forward. He's now an adolescent and the lady of the house tries to seduce him. She gets caught and they're worried about the reputation of their family and whatnot, so they have him thrown into prison unjustly. He's innocent, but he's thrown into prison. He was blamed and he was thrown into prison. And no one was ready to listen to his case or his story. Time passes, he remains in prison for so many years. And then the king of the land sees a dream, he interprets the dream, and then his innocence is proclaimed, and then he's freed from prison. And he's then appointed the Minister of Finances of Egypt, you know, after all of that. But the interesting thing is, throughout his story, you never ever see him talking about the what that happened in his life, but rather he was focused on the why. He was an apostle, he was a prophet sent by God on a mission. So he was focused on the why. He never ever questioned God, oh, you know, all this is happening in my life. Why is life so unfair? No. Why? He was focused on the bigger why. He was focused on his mission. He knew that if he was breathing and if he was alive, there was a deeper sense, in the sense, a bigger picture. As human beings, we just grapple with the pixels, little pixels. We don't have access to the entire picture. Think of a 4K or an 8K picture where you've got like 4,000 pixels or 8,000 pixels, and all you have are a few pixels, maybe 100 pixels. And you don't have access to the other pixels. It's God who has access to the entire picture, the entire timeline of yours. So firstly, this reminder is for myself, because as I speak, these words resonate in my head, in my mind, and in my heart. And I hope those of you who are watching this video, that you can relate to it as well, and that this video helps you in some way or the other. And if you did like the content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more content, and also please do share the video around so that others benefit. You can give it a thumbs up and join in on the comments below. Let me know what you think about the content and as to whether you can relate to it. I look forward to talking to you all in another video real soon. So until then, take care. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.